Joe Biden has made a promise of what he will do his first 100 days in office. And we're going to get into this because I have some laughs and I have some things to debunk. Shout out to Simon Ataba for writing all of this down so that you don't have to. Breaking your reaction, defiant and upbeat President Biden lays out the first 100 days of his second term. Restore Roe v. Wade, make it law of the land. Sign the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Pass the Freedom to Vote Act. Expand and strengthen Social Security and Medicare. End medical debt and ensure medical debt can no longer be put on credit reports. Raise the federal minimum wage. Some of these will sound like repeats to you because he's made these promises before. Pass the PRO Act to end union busting. Ban assault weapons again. Continue leading the world on climate and clean energy. Make the child care tax cut permanent. Could have done that the first time, but okay. Ensure no senior pays more than $2,000 a year for prescription drugs starting in 2025. Extend the $35 insulin cap for seniors to all Americans. Make housing more affordable by building 2 million housing units and capping rent increases at 5% a year. End Trump's tax cuts for the very wealthy and corporations. Ensure no one making less than $400,000 pays more in federal taxes. Impose a minimum 25% income tax on billionaires. Generate $500 billion in revenue over 10 years to fund child care, elder care, and reduce the federal deficit. This is the speech here in Michigan, in a state where he really does need to win in order to win the presidential election. Let's get into this.
So today I'm going to start by laying out the first 100 days of my second term. And here it is. The first bill I'm going to introduce will restore Roe v. Wade to make it the law of the land.
Let's pause there, Roe v. Wade. Now, what's the problem with this one? Let's see. When Barack Obama ran, he said it would be the first thing that he would do, and he won and changed his mind and blamed it on Lieberman. Could have easily abolished the filibuster. Dems have kicked this can down the road for quite some time, right? He is president right now. Joe Biden is president right now. So there's just a number of things that could have been done. The Democrats, they delayed this, and I felt like they delayed it on purpose. Let's continue.
I will sign the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act.
Why can't you sign it now? Why can't you sign it now? So you see, some of these promises, like the Voting Rights Act, this was a promise that Joe Biden made before, but it hasn't been done.
We're not only going to stop Trump and the MAGA Republicans from cutting Social Security and Medicare, we'll expand and strengthen Social Security and Medicare. And here's how we're going to.
He could have already done that. Social Security and Medicare. Remember, Joe Biden is still on record on video saying that he wanted to get rid of Social Security and Medicare. And people can say, well, he changed over time, whatever it is, what it is. But Joe Biden has been in office all this time. So when he did make certain, changes to healthcare, like the insulin cap, he could have already done this. And that doesn't even go far enough because, as I said before, Joe Biden continues to tell you that if the bill for Medicare for all comes across his desk, he will veto it. Joe Biden doesn't want everyone in this country to have health care. He wants to continue to give you crumbs. So expanding Social Security and expanding Medicare, those are not the same things as implementing Medicare for all. This is important that people need to understand. Now, AOC is saying the same thing, by the way. She's like, I'm going to work with President Biden to expand Medicare. Notice how they've fallen back now. Even some of the squad members, no more Medicare for all. It's expand Medicare. That could have already been done. Let's continue.
To do it. Press always asks how. Listen, press, by making the rich pay their fair share of Social Security. And we're going to end medical debt By that I mean we've already made sure medical debt can no longer be put on your credit report.
Could have already done that. And I think that should happen. I think we should end medical debt. I know a lot of people that are in debt, not because of credit cards, but because they had enormous hospital bills that they couldn't pay. You know, things they didn't really sign up for, but they had emergencies, like things happen and their insurance didn't cover everything. And you can have like a monthly payment plan, but I mean, how much does it cost to have a baby in this country, for example? So here we go again. Something that could have already been done. Let's continue.
You can wipe out medical debt for pennies on the dollar. We're going to raise the federal minimum wage.
Problem. Didn't he promise that last time? And how did that go? Remember, the Senate voted against it. And you know what was really bad about that? I expected Republicans to vote against it. I did not expect Democrats to vote against it. And so that was the other thing, is that there were 8 senators that voted against it. 7 of them were Democrats and 1 was an independent. And of course, the Republicans voted against it. So here is Joe Biden again making another promise to increase the federal minimum wage when it failed last time. I mean, it's disgusting. Like, he's telling you things that you want to hear so that you'll come out and vote for him. But the reality is the reality is Biden is making some of the same mistakes that Bernie Sanders made, where they made all these promises, but they left out that in order to get these things passed, it has to pass in the Senate. So here he is again, lying to people, saying, I'm going to raise the federal minimum wage when he knows that the Senate voted against it last time. It's just stuff like this. Like, you can't make these promises to poor people. You can't make these promises to working class people. A lot of the people in Michigan are working class people.
We're going to pass the PRO Act, ending union busting once and for all. And I'm going to ban assault weapons again. I did it once, I'm going to do it again.
Now, it's interesting that this speech was made before the attempted assassination on Donald Trump, banning the assault weapons.
We're going to keep leading the world. We are on climate and clean energy. When I signed the American Rescue Plan, the law expanded child care tax credit to cut child poverty in half in America, and it did. Republicans let it expire. I'm going to make child care tax cut permanent.
There he goes again, making promises that he can't fulfill. So let's talk about the child tax credit. Yes, that passed. And then they said, we cut child poverty in half. And I said, you can eliminate all child poverty in this country if we decrease that defense budget. If we stop sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, no child in this country should be hungry. No child in this country should go hungry at all. We are one of the wealthiest countries in the world. It doesn't make any sense. So there's that. The other one that he said, the climate reform. How are you going to become more aggressive about climate reform and you approve the Willow Act? You're still approving new drilling permits when he promised you in 2020 that he wouldn't. So there's a lot of lies that are being told here, ladies and gentlemen, and the crowd that is behind him, they're falling for it. And the reality is a lot of voters will fall for it. A lot of voters aren't going to sit there. They don't have time to do it. Aren't going to sit there and say, wait a minute, didn't he make that promise before? A lot of people are just now tuning into electoral politics. Most people don't tune in until we get closer and closer to the election. And a lot of people haven't looked at, oh, didn't he make these comments before? So just, again, you cannot continue to lie to working class people.
And by the way, it increases economic growth, doesn't increase the deficit. People can work when you have jobs. No, I'm serious. That's the deal. We capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35, totally cost.
It should have been capped for everyone. It should have been capped for everyone. You know, I mean, it's not just seniors that are diabetic. That was the other thing.
And no senior beginning on 2025 is going to have to pay more than $2,000 a year for all their prescription drugs. including cancer drugs that are $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 a year. And my second term, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that same plan available for every single American. Again, saving the federal government hundreds of billions of dollars over time. We're going to make housing more affordable. That means taking on corporate greed and getting the rents down. We're going to build 2 million housing units and cap rent increases of 5% a year so corporate landlords can no longer gouge everyone like they're doing.
Let's talk about the housing initiative, because this is where a lot of people, they buy into this when they hear the phrase affordable housing. Affordable housing can mean different things in different places. Affordable housing in Boston also includes the average income of towns in New Hampshire. It's not just the income that's in Boston. It's an entire area, which includes the southern part of New Hampshire. So what happens is that you have people that are in suburban communities where their income, they usually make more money or can afford to make, can afford to buy a house. Their income is now included with the income of people who are working at places like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, with people who are, lower income. So that means that the affordable housing price is now not really affordable to a lot of working class people. There are affordable apartments in Boston listed on Boston City website that are qualified and identified as affordable housing, but some of those apartments are like $4,000 a month. I don't know about you, but I can't pay $4,000 a month for an apartment, and I don't even work at Dunkin'. So I want to be very clear, people. Affordable housing is misleading. It's based on the median income of a surrounding area, not just in the city, not just one neighborhood. So we have to get away from this phrase of affordable housing, and we have to guarantee housing for all. That's what we have to do. So you got to be careful with that. Let's continue.
We can do this. We're going to end Trump's tax cuts for the very wealthy and the corporations to make the tax code fair. I kept my commitment. I think a lot of you thought, why is Biden doing what he said?
You could have stopped Trump's tax cuts the entire time that you have been in office. And I said this to people time and time again, that Joe Biden, he continued some of the same tax cuts for wealthy people that Donald Trump did. Now him and Kamala Harris are running around the country telling people, hey, we're going to make the wealthy pay their fair share. You could have done that all along. So guys, do you see this game? You see the game that they play? They've been in office all these years. This could have already been accomplished. So it's just a way to get you to come back out and support them.
Which is, no one making less than $400,000 will pay a penny more in federal taxes. I don't know many people making $400,000. In my neighborhood, no one did. But I wanted to be clear that I wasn't going to be taxing anyone who was a working man or anything close to it. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to make billionaires. We have 1,000 in America since the pandemic. Pay a minimum tax of 25%. You know what? By the way,
that could have already been done.
You know what they pay now? A billionaire's federal tax is 8.2%. Not a joke. I'm not making this up. Because no billionaire should pay a lower tax rate than a teacher, a firefighter, a nurse. It's ridiculous. That one thing alone would generate $500 billion in revenue over the next 10 years, allowing us to do more for child care, elder care, bring down federal deficit, do so much more.
So here's the thing here that I want to mention about the billionaires and all of that jazz, right? So yes, wealthy need to pay their fair share. They've been getting by. Jesus Christ. The fact that you had companies like Netflix and Amazon not paying any taxes is just absolutely ridiculous. That being said, Joe Biden has been in office since 2021. This could have happened already. This could have happened already. James says it here. He only has 5 months left in office. Right. He's not planning on doing any of these things before November. These are the things he's going to do in 2025 in the first 100 days that he says. But he's made some of these promises before. And I just don't want people to fall for this again. Look, I'm not going to be there with you when you go to vote. You're going to be by yourself. But the reality is we have to pay attention to what these candidates say and also what they do. I can understand if Joe Biden is not the incumbent, but he is. So people need to start asking these questions. Why didn't you do these things the entire time that you were in office? Some of the things that he could have done. Another one that I want to add, which I think is easy to do, which he can do by executive order, decriminalize marijuana. He can do that by executive order. Just him. That's an easy one. That's a layup, fam. Seriously, that's me passing you the ball and you doing a layup. Hasn't been done. Now he's been talking about it, but it's just, I don't want people to get their hopes up again and fall for this again. Because when you look at some of these goals that he mentioned here, it's just some of these things are easy, right? But you need to be careful about promising people that you're going to raise the federal minimum wage when you made that promise last time and it failed because of the Senate. And it wasn't just Republicans that stopped it. I reiterate that. There were Democrats that voted against it, including Coons, who is in Delaware, the credit card state. Surprise, surprise. Things like that. So some of this is hypocritical. Continuing to lead the world on climate and clean energy. You approved drilling, new drilling projects. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you're bombing people, you're not leading the world on climate and energy. We all know this. So I can't. It makes me want to scream. Like, seriously, be careful with the word affordable housing. I'll continue to tell you guys about that. I've interviewed a number of people on this show that have quote unquote affordable housing, and those people are barely making the rent, barely making the rent. And we talked about the tax cuts and everything as well. I want you to show you something Raquel said. Does Joe Biden understand that a poll showing him beating Trump 50-48 is a poll showing him losing the Electoral College? Listen to this. This is something else that he said in Michigan.
Folks, you probably noticed there's been a lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that. Just today, the Marist poll released a national poll that has me beating Trump 50-48.
So there is this thing called the Electoral College. And I've been telling people the polls that you're seeing, that's the popular vote. Remember, Hillary Clinton was beating Trump with the popular vote, but she lost the Electoral College. These races come down to the swing states. And so what Joe Biden should be paying attention to is how he's polling in the swing states. And I'm going to tell you one thing. Like I said, I'm going on vacation this week. When I get back, I'm going to look at these polls. Because after this assassination attempt on Donald Trump, I would imagine his number's probably going to go through the roof. We'll get to that when I get to that story. But I would imagine that is coming. Now, I want to show you this as well. Something else that Joe Biden needs to be aware of. Shout out to Professor Zinkas. Changes in voter registration. Pennsylvania has plus 9,000 Republicans, negative 240 Democrats, and plus 15,000 independents. And just look at the totals. Democrats are cooked. Let's go down to. So Professor Zinkas posted this before the assassination attempt. So I would imagine that number may change again for Pennsylvania. So we'll go down to Pennsylvania here and you'll see what he's talking about. That's plus 9,035 for Republican, negative 240 for the Democrats. and you have plus over 15,000 registered independents. It's not just Pennsylvania. You can see it happen. I don't know what the hell's going on in Rhode Island, because in Rhode Island, Rhode Island says negative 189 for Republicans and negative 2,796 for Democrats and plus 47. I want to see if there was another state on here that, Jesus Christ. See, guys, this is why you got to pay attention to this. Florida, I still always said, was a red state anyway. Colorado, plus not over 900 registered Republicans, and Democrats plus 1,635. Delaware, I don't know what's going on in Delaware either. Iowa's an interesting one. Negative 2,286 Democrats plus 12,659. So these are the kind of things that Joe Biden should be paying attention to, and maybe he is, and he just doesn't want to believe it. And then there's the donor issue. Donors are pulling away from Joe Biden's campaign. Listen to this.
Breaking this hour, New York Times reporting donors have told the largest pro-Biden super PAC that roughly $90 million in pledges are now frozen if Biden remains at the top of the ticket. But this may only be the beginning. Reports claim a coordinated Democratic rebellion is set to unfold during a brutal 48-hour stretch for Biden. An 18th Democrat lawmaker just called for Biden's exit 90 minutes ago. Now we're learning that President Biden privately met with White House Minority Leader Jeffries after his solo press conference last night, where he made several embarrassing mistakes on the world stage.
So the donors are pulling out, and that's always a big sign because you have to follow the money. So there's that. It's not looking good for Joe Biden. And after yesterday, it especially is not going to look good for the Democrats. Look, I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I'm an independent. I'm an old school Bernie supporter, squad supporter, and they let me down too. So it just, after a while, you just have to follow the money, and then you'll understand why these politicians vote the way that they do, why they sell the American people out, and where we're headed as a country. Very concerning. But that was Joe Biden there in Michigan making promises of his first 100 days in 2025 if he is reelected. A lot of repeats and a lot of things that I think he cannot accomplish, and some things that I think that he could have already done. Don't fall for it.